听众朋友们大家好，欢迎收听我们本期的878会客室。今天呢，我们邀请到的这位嘉宾啊，我相信我们的很多朋友都非常熟悉，是来自于沃伦比的议员 Tim James。Welcome。Thank
you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and your listeners.
Yes, we're us too. And could we start by sharing what inspired you to enter politics and serve the people of Wollongby? 所以我们首先从您的这个从政的初衷来谈起啊，是什么激励了您投身政治，来选择为 Wollongby 的这些地区的民众来服务呢
？Well, I've always been interested in people. That is how I was raised. Mum was a nurse, Dad worked in personnel, in human resources, and I've always really thought that people make the world go around. And in public life, people are at the core of what you are there to do, to serve, to listen, to understand, to engage, to help, to make lives better. And so at a young age, I had very valuable opportunities to join my party, contribute to campaigns and to work indeed for Joe Hockey for 18 months and then John Howard for nearly 5 years. So I had two very good mentors early on and I came to the realisation that public life means a great deal, that government of course shapes our lives much more than many people realise, and I decided that it would be for me something that I'm interested in, something that I think fulfills my interest in people, my passion for policy. I loved studying. I loved school and university both, but I particularly loved economics. And I think in politics, you are pulling the big strings or the big levers of policy when it comes to the state's budget, the economy, how we're spending public money. And I mean, these are big decisions, and to be able to shape and influence those decisions and indeed ultimately to be a decision maker is incredibly precious and an enormous privilege, the greatest privilege of my career.
Yeah, it's also might be a big challenge, is it?
Yes, it is. I think though, if you love what you do, you're better at it. Hopefully, I think you enjoy it more. People perceive that you're really happy and enjoying your work. And I mean, as they say, if you really love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And I'll be honest, in so many cases, that is how it feels because I'm just so oriented towards people and community and policy making. And I mean, they go hand in hand, of course. In the end, policy making is all about people and community. And I really love what I do. Yes, of course, there are challenges, big challenges, and we can talk about those. But I'm very, very happy to be doing what I'm doing.Yes,
and 其实您成功当选2022年补选的议员，而且呢也曾经多次参加了这个竞选哈。那是什么动力让您在经历了挫折之后仍然是坚持不懈？那有没有某一个特别的时刻或者是信念，能够让您继续的坚定您最初的一个选择呢？
Yeah, you've got to persevere in public life. Of course, there are ups and downs and trials and tribulations, but...if you are driven towards it, you've got to see it in the long term. And in some ways, public life can be a test of consistency, of character, of your determination and drive to continue on. And so there was never any doubt in my mind that, yes, I'd face ups and downs and some losses too, but you need to persevere. If you believe in the cause, in the calling, if this is what you believe your best pursuit is, then I urge anyone who's interested, don't give up, don't be a quitter, go forward, give it your very best shot, and you can persevere in the long run. And perhaps I'm a little bit of a case study there. Was there any one moment that sort of pinpoints it? Not really, because I think in so many ways politics is the accumulation of wisdom, of understanding, of relationships, of opportunities. I mean, I just felt that I could over time continue to build momentum, to learn more, to grow more, to become hopefully more well prepared and well rounded and more able to be able to contribute in the way I am now. So I didn't. Those early setbacks, I think you've got to try to treat everything in life as a reward and or a lesson. And you've got to learn those lessons and just try to come back better and stronger. And I'm ever so grateful I was able to do that.
Yes, so tell us is never give up.
Correct.
Yeah. 那其实沃伦比我们都知道是一个非常多元文化的选区，拥有大量的华裔澳大利亚的这个居民。那您是如何与本地的华人社区来保持联系的？
To be honest, it's one of the greatest joys serving Willoughby. About a quarter of the community has Chinese heritage and background, and I'm so proud and passionate about serving Chinese Australians, indeed all Australians, but I have great regard, can I say, for the Chinese Australians. There is such a commitment to education, to family, to enterprise, to hard work, a big focus on small business. I mean, the Chinese Australians of Willoughby are some of our most hardworking, committed, finest citizens, and it's a huge privilege to serve them. How do you do that? I think most of all you do that well by being very present, very much among the community, being obviously at lots of events and festivals and meetings. I try not to say no in this job to anyone. Of course, there are things you must say no to, but when it comes to events and meeting requests, I have tried very much to make myself available, to be open and accessible, to be responsive, always to be listening and learning and hopefully growing in the role. And I still feel I have much to learn only after 3.5 years in the job. I hope there's a big future ahead. But the Chinese community, I think they respect someone who is hardworking and open and accessible. And I don't have tickets on myself, but that's what I've tried to be over the last 3.5 years. And I think that's hopefully recognised, and I think you can do the job better. I mean, in so many ways in this job, you are only as good as the conversations you are having, the engagements you are engaging in, and the understanding that you gain from that. And to do the job well, you need to be very, very present. But to be honest, again, for me, that's a joy, it's a privilege, and I'm only too happy to do it.
Yeah, and did you always communicate with the Chinese Australia residents?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I have lots of friends in the Chinese Australian community, including, of course, at a local level. I mean, some of them are community leaders, business leaders, but some, mums, dads, ordinary citizens. And I mean, I've got a small WhatsApp group of 20, 25 Chinese Australians. Sometimes I just bounce ideas off them and take their advice and put some sort of thoughts to them, but of course, I mean, you're there for everyone and you listen to everyone, but and I've had some staff, interns, people who are serving on my conference executive, Chinese Australians, and some of my longest friends in this world are Chinese Australians. So I mean, I think it's you're constantly involved, you're constantly engaging, you're constantly listening. Of course, you always want to be there for people. Of course, there are times when you can't be all things to all people, but I try to be very responsive, very engaged, very positive. I think people look in public life for someone who is positive, who's hopeful, who has a sense of a better future and a better tomorrow, and that's how I try to. I mean, that's who I am, but that's also how I try to present. And again, I think a lot of this comes very naturally. If you love people and community, I think a lot of this comes very naturally.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think the Chinese Australia also is very lucky. Yeah, they can express their opinion. 所以刚刚呢，其实 Tim James 呢也说到了，他经常会与华人社区来取得一个联系。那接下来呢，我们也想问，就是在沃伦比居住的这些华人居民，他们最主要关切的一些问题到底有哪些呢？ So you mentioned before you always make communication with the Chinese Australians. And have you heard some main issues or main concerns from this group?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I know that education is a huge priority for Chinese Australians, and rightly so. I mean, they are so focused on the future, wanting a better future for their children. That is a beautiful thing. I completely endorse that, and I support that wholeheartedly. And I mean, in the Willoughby area, it generally has very good schools. We're fortunate to have good schools, but there's also some pressures in terms of capacity, some schools that are full or close to full, and we need to be building for the future. So at the moment, for example, in Chatswood and St Leonard's Crow's Nest, there are 2 schools that should be built, which we committed in government to building and put some money and design and planning efforts underway to get those started, but the current government has said, no, we're not building those schools. And I know that is deeply disappointing to the community, including particularly the Chinese Australian community, because education means so very much. It is such an enabler for a better future, and it is such a point of focus. But equally, business, obviously, family, looking after older Australians. I mean, I see some amazing work in the Chinese Australian community in which, there is such respect for older family members, whether it's in the house or the community or otherwise. I think that is so important, and in a sense is a test of the character of a community, is how we look after and support both our youngest but also our oldest. And I have full respect for the Chinese Australian community and how they care for and look after and support both their young people but also their older people. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's right. 那从您的角度来看，华人社区在促进澳大利亚的社会凝聚力方面可以发挥着什么样的一个作用呢？ So from your perspective, what role can the Chinese community play in fostering social cohesion in Australia?
Well, I mean, every Australian has a role to play in making our country even greater. Australia is, in my view, the world's most successful multicultural nation state. Waves of migrants from across the world have made this country home, and we thank them for choosing Australia. But in the end, it's up to all of us. I mean, our future is ours to make together, and every Australian, no matter their background, can volunteer, can contribute, can be a part of community, society, civil society, schools, charities, you name it. It's our future to make, and certainly Chinese Australians I see in charities, schools, churches, in so many institutions of our society. They do incredible work, and that is deeply appreciated. It's recognised, it's valued, it's treasured, and I would urge the Chinese Australian community to keep doing what it's doing. It does it so well, as I said before, when it comes to younger members and older members of the community. I think that is such a test of character, and I see how well the Chinese Australian community does do that, and great credit to the Chinese Australian community on the back of that.
Yes， 那其实我们知道，在这个沃伦比这个区域啊，这个关于住房供应和可负担的问题呢，是很多人关注的一个问题。那您的自己选区当中采取了哪些措施来应付这些问题？也是如何看待政府所推出的以交通为导向的一个发展性的项目 ？So housing supply and affordable is I think the main concerns in many parts of in Sydney, especially in Wollongby, it's quite expensive, including this area. So what actions are you taking to address these issues in your electorate? And what's your view on the government's transport-oriented development TOD program?
Yes, indeed. So Sydney is the second most expensive city in the world in which to buy a home. That is not something we should be proud of, but it is absolutely something we should be working on together across all levels of government, federal, state and local, and indeed for everyone across the community to be conscious of that and to be working together to obviously look at it both on the supply side, so how are we building homes, how many, where, to what extent they represent good planning and good ideas and better futures for people and communities, but also on the demand side, how we're looking at policies around taxation, ownership, interest rates. So there's a whole raft of policies that come into play here, of course. But our approach, when we were in government over 12 years here in New South Wales, our approach was to be, yes, building homes, and indeed pre-COVID, Sydney was building a lot of new homes, meeting a lot of demand, over 75,000 homes. I think that was the peak in about 2017-18. And since then, we just haven't been building as many homes. And obviously, COVID was a particular interruption and challenge. But we were indeed building our city, building our infrastructure. Our economy in New South Wales was the strongest in the country. We had a government with no debt, running surplus budgets. I mean, we were very much on top of the country. We had made New South Wales number one again, and great work was being done. Since then, yes, there's been significant challenges, and today new housing is obviously a key aspiration. Everybody sees the need to build additional homes. How you do it and where you do it is part of the discussion. And without getting too political here, we have a government that is in place, the Labor government of Chris Minns in New South Wales. What they've done with the TOD, Transport-Oriented Development Policy, is they've said we are going to draw a line 400 metres or 800 metres from some town centres and railway stations, metro stations, and that will be the area for growth. Now, much of that is sound and reasonable. Of course, if you are going to go about urban infill, it should be close to transport, close to shops and facilities and services. But it is, in our view, a one-size-fits-all blanket policy. It doesn't represent good planning. So in my area, for example, in Willoughby, across the Willoughby electorate, so much of the growth is in Chatswood along the Pacific Highway Strip, but also in Crow's Nest and St Leonard's. And when we were growing those communities, we said we will build the metro, we will build more capacity in local schools, we will build a park over the railway line in St Leonard's. We are creating more green space in Crow's Nest. And that's what the proposition was that we took to the community. If you will grow, we will build infrastructure, services, facilities and more to accommodate that growth. My concern at the moment is we have a government that is saying build, 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 but there is no accommodation, investment, no future planning. Councils and communities at a local level are basically cut out of the process. And in my view, that does not represent good planning that brings people together on the journey towards building more homes. No doubt we need more homes, but the TOD solution is not really a solution in our view. Yes, it will generate some new homes. We welcome most of that. But it's how you plan, it's how you grow, and most of all, in so many ways, it's how you invest in communities and create the conditions for that growth, to enable it, to have it welcomed, to have it accommodated. That is so much of the key, and much of that, unfortunately, is missing under this Chris Minns Labor government.
Yeah, so I think too much resistance complying, like the processing is too complex and too slow. So if the government have plan, but maybe in too many years we can get it. And some also complain the apartment too much processing for approval. It's like we finish down this apartment, but we have to waiting like electronic or water certificate. It needs a very, very long time. So do you think it's a issue for this?
Definitely. I think that there are some key hold-ups. I mean, Sydney Water, you've just mentioned water. I mean, it is extraordinary to me that Sydney Water have basically come out and said we cannot build more than 120,000, I think is the figure, homes in the next few years because of the water infrastructure constraints. Now, that is going to really stunt growth in housing. And this government that ultimately, directs Sydney Water, it's a state-owned corporation, they will have to find a way to get over that hurdle to deal with that challenge because those homes are very needed. And I should have said before, by the way, that a key part of the growth that is needed is not just the urban infill in and around existing railway stations and shopping centres. It is also growing Sydney. It is building our greater capacity as a city. I mean, we obviously in government put so much effort into building these metros. And that is such an important enabler for any global city. I mean, look at Paris, London, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong. Those metros are so important in moving people around effectively. And Sydney has only just got a metro in the last, 10 years. Some of these other cities have had them for 100 years. So we've got to keep building our city, keep building that infrastructure, and then that will help to enable growth for people to be building homes right across Sydney and indeed outside of Sydney. People should be able to live on the Central Coast of Blue Mountains, Illawarra and work in Sydney. But at the moment, the infrastructure doesn't really adequately accommodate that in terms of travel times and so much more.
Now let's talk about some business.
Yes.
Yeah， 所以其实很多的有志青年啊，就是华裔到澳大利亚的年轻人，特别是来自于一些移民家庭的青年，会有创业的一个想法。所以您有什么样的一个建议，可以为他们提供哪些方面的支持呢？ So what advice would you give to young Chinese Australians, especially from the migrant families who are interested in starting their small business? So what kind of support do you think they need the most right now?
Well, it's a tough environment for business in this country at the moment. I mean, the story of government and policy making in this country really since COVID has been so much of the growth and investment has been in the government sector. And that is part of why we've had the high inflation, big government spending, big debt and deficits. That does not help our economy in the private sector to grow, to be able to innovate, to be able to invest. I mean, part of what we've seen is a really tough landscape, high interest rates, high wages, high business input costs, whether it's insurance, energy, and so much more, building materials, among other things, very expensive. So making business work in recent times has been hard, frankly, too hard. And I think, part of the key to the future of our country is to make it easier for business to create the conditions for enterprise to flourish. Indeed, they were the words of my party's founder, Robert Menzies, this country's longest-serving Prime Minister, said the first duty of government is to create the conditions for enterprise to flourish. And that is so, so important. That is not going to come from having bigger government, bigger spending, higher taxes, more public sector workers. It is going to come from individual initiative, from enterprise, from entrepreneurialism, from hard work. These are the values that I think we need to emphasise and reward and focus on much more so in a policy sense. So having said all of that, Australia is still a great place in which to do business. You need to be well organised. You need to have a very good business plan. You need to understand the regulatory landscape. I think personally, across three levels of government, sometimes we are over-regulated, and I think there are times and places where we need to liberalise and make room more so for the private sector to step up and step in. I think we can do more to support individual initiative, people and private enterprise. They will grow our economy. It is not government investment that will grow our economy. It is always people and private enterprise. That's how I see the world, and I think that is the great need for policy making in this state and country for the next 5 to 10, 20 years even.
那近年来其实有很多的族裔也面临着很多族裔媒体面临着诸多的挑战。那你认为在族裔媒体以及多元文化节庆在增强社区方面扮演着什么样的一个角色？政府可以采取什么样的措施来支持他们呢？ So, ethnic media have faced major challenges in recent years. What role do you think the ethnic media and multicultural festivals play in fostering community engagement, and what can the government do to support their sustainability?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the media landscape, of course, is changing. I mean, to some degree, it has always been changing, but these days it is more, fragmented with so many platforms and mediums and tools, and obviously the switch to online and social media. I think it's tough for all media companies out there, to be honest with you. It's such a different, challenging, increasingly, I think, unpredictable landscape, but also with that comes opportunities. And I think ethnic media has a vital role to play in communities. And I see in my local area in Chatswood, for example, the role of Chinese radio, newspapers, but the festivals, as you say, whether it is Moon Festival, Chinese
Dragon Boat Festival.
Of course, Dragon Boat Festival. Great credit to your organisation for your support for that. These are big celebrations. They bring people together. And, I think actually at a time in which we are, in a sense, more connected online on our phones and social media, sometimes we are less connected in a true community sense, person to person. And I think that's where these events, these festivals can mean so much and do mean so much. And that's the beauty of them, is bringing people, families, communities together, sharing common goals and ideals and great causes to celebrate. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And, I want to recognise everyone who's doing great work in the ethnic media and with, festivals, because I think that work is so, so precious today and certainly for our tomorrow as well.
Okay, thank you. So finally, what message would you like to share directly to our audience?
Well, thank you for listening to me. To be a politician is the greatest career privilege one can have, in my view. To be someone who is in my area representing 100,000 people, that's a big responsibility, a heavy, weighty responsibility, but I never take it for granted. I want to be among and talking with everybody. Of course, you can't at the same time talk to 100,000 people, but I just want to say to your listeners, please reach out to me, to my office, to my team anytime. We are here for you. My job is to serve everyone, whether or not they voted for me, whatever your background, politics, interests or otherwise. My job is to serve you, to make your life better, to create for you, your family and our community an even better life. I think we are very lucky in Willoughby and indeed across Sydney, New South Wales and Australia. But we can always strive for better, to have an even better life, a healthier, longer, happier life. And I want to help everyone to achieve just that.
Okay, thank you, Tim James. Accept our interview and also thanks for your sharing.
It's been a joy and pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.